Well, are boomers staying too long on the job? If so, are they blocking growth opportunities for millennials and Gen Xers? And what impact is it all having on business? KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp join me this month to weigh in on this and some other important topics in our Eye on Economic Development segment. Welcome as always.
Hi, Gary.
When you sent these, a couple of these topics, I found this very interesting. So USA Today piece said millennials and Gen Xers are really beginning to complain that baby boomers are staying on the job too long, not leaving, and that's kind of dampening their prospects for advancement. Katie, is this a real thing?
I do think it's a real complaint, and I do think in some instances boomers are retiring longer, but what I think will be really interesting is to see what the calculus is, because with there's all this data out there that millennials are really interested in work-life balance. As a result, maybe are working overall fewer hours than boomers. So how many FTEs does it translate to from
right.
Millennial to boomer should be interesting.
And the fact, Tim, there are what, 5 distinct kind of generations if you're working in the same workplace. What kind of challenges does that present to companies?
Well, I mean, you have the different personalities, you have different cultural, like how they grew up, I mean, what music they listen to, what they're interested in, but I think if you go more granular than that, it's how do they work? What is their work style? How many hours do they work? Mm-hmm. What are their career plans? If you look at 2 or 3 generations ago, you had people that came to a job out of college and that was their job their whole career. With millennials, average turnover is 1.5 years. So all of those different dynamics play a role in the workforce nowadays.
I'll ask you both this, but where do you see this headed? Having multiple generations in the workplace presents challenges. It's been happening for a while now. Where do you see this all headed?
I think companies have to figure it out. These different generations are still going to be around a while. Boomers are working longer for a variety of reasons, and they're going to have to figure it out, with the guidance and direction of their employers.
Yeah, Katie, where do you see this headed?
I think it's going to result in improved communication and a better understanding of stylistic differences, not just of generations, but personality types. And I think that's a good thing, ultimately. But it sure is different. As a Gen Xer, nobody cared what I thought about my work-life balance when I was a kid.
Good. Tim, I want to ask you, too, one quick question on this same topic, because I think it's interesting is why baby boomers are working longer. Some of them maybe didn't anticipate it, but with the recession and 401k balances, maybe that's as part of it, as well as the fact that people are living longer and they want to work.
Yeah, I think that is true. If you look at like 2007, I think a lot of them plan to retire a lot sooner. 401k accounts got depleted. They ended up having to work longer. And then I think some of them decided, you know what, I want to continue to work even if it's not 40 hours a week. And I don't want someone telling me that it's time for me to retire.
Yeah. Another hot topic in the workplace has been for the last 2 years, the Me Too movement really started 2 years ago. It's been 1 year since that highly publicized walkout at Google over companies' gender policies there. Katie, as you look at the Me Too movement 2 years later, is the impact still being felt?
I do think it's still evolving. On the pro side, I think it's good we're talking about it. You can't come up with solutions until you do. On the con side, I run into our clients and colleagues all the time who are legitimately confused about how to approach some of these issues. So men I've worked with for 20 years, and I've always given the camp counselor a hug to. An executive at a publicly traded company said, "Is this okay now?" And he earnestly meant it, because people don't know what to do. And so it's very confusing for all, and it doesn't feel like a good space for me right now.
Yeah. Tim, as you look at it, and Katie kind of framed that, I think, very well in terms of the challenges that companies are facing in personnel, HR departments, and others. How do you see this shaking out?
I think it's a tricky issue. I think people are very cautious. How do we approach it? People that look like me, my gender, my ethnicity, we're the decision makers. We're the ones that can really impact some change here, because we're still the majority of the C-suite, and I think it takes a concerted effort to say we are going to change this, and part of that is who you appoint in positions of power, and part of it is what kind of focus you put on it as a company leader.
And do you think, as Katie pointed out, some of the awareness that was brought about by this maybe is helping to facilitate some of those changes?
I think there's been a lot of good awareness. I think the danger is let's not pat ourselves on the back too quickly. I think there's not a specific objective or an endpoint in mind. It's something that we've got to be vigilant about, and we've got to continually work on it. Whether it would be this, or if you compare it to where we are in race 40 years ago, we're still talking about a lot of the same issues, and so I think there's a lot of similarities there. I
think it's really important, though, not to overcorrect. Because what I observe a lot is that there's a fear of potential insult, and so maybe women are excluded altogether from certain opportunities. So it's important that we keep talking about it and keep brainstorming about solutions.
There's always got to be balance.
Yep. Final topic we'll talk about, which again is in the forefront these days, is the pressure on companies beyond profits to have some social responsibility, and millennials in particular and some of the younger generations want to see more of this. How do you see that playing out in the workplace with what companies are really focused on?
You know, if I look at the clients that Katie and I have, it's a common question we get from communities, which is how involved are you in the community? Do you have specific programs? Most of our clients are already doing these sorts of things anyway, but I think the fact that you have a workforce telling decision makers, CEOs, that this is something that we're engaged in, we want to find purpose in our work, I think it's a good focus to have, and I think it's something that there's going to be a nice evolution as time passes.
Yeah, Katie, how do you see this look? I know there's that inclusion strategy that City of Indianapolis and the Chamber are involved with. There was also an event held where a lot of companies got interns together to go out and do projects in the community. So we're beginning to see it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's meaningful from an employee retention standpoint and attraction, but it's forcing companies to be, I think, as Tim said, they were already doing it, but now they're coordinating and having a greater impact together, and I think that's a good thing. It's more powerful when you kind of join forces like that.
Katie Culp and Tim Cook, KSM Location Advisors. Some interesting topics this week and some great perspective. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, and we'll be right back after this. Stay with us.